a lot of times when I would maybe, tell a healthcare worker that was outside of my primary care where I would go for my HIV treatment, they would see my HIV status and, almost be curious as to kind of how I got it. And they kind of, so when I would kind of very openly state the fact that I was born with it, they would almost sigh a sigh of relief, like, oh, that makes sense. And there are numerous other spokesmodels that have, kind of reported that they assume, like, especially, if you're a gay man, a lot of times they assume that you must have HIV or AIDS. And it's just like, why is that where people go, right? A lot of stigma with HIV, I don't know. I think what's important to know when it comes to HIV is that people who, like the doctors that actually deal with HIV are specialists. They're called infectious disease specialists. And if you're not going to a doctor that's an infectious disease specialist, most doctors don't have the sensitivity in the language or even the opinion of how someone may have contracted that illness. So they're kind of just factually stating things with no sensitivity and awareness of how it is that it could affect that person. Whereas the people who, the doctors who really specialize in it, they have a little bit more, I don't want to say empathy, but like they have more knowledge to kind of pull from, to be able to educate people and understand and empathize with that diagnosis, and it'll almost be more helpful with the information that they're giving. And that's just based on my experience, but there are numerous other spokesmodels whose story about when they were told about their diagnosis, that they were just allowed to leave, that no one counseled them, no one offered to give them any resources or anything. They kind of had to figure it out for themselves through other resources, unfortunately.
Thankfully, I have not experienced within the medical field discrimination around my HIV status. I have experienced discrimination around my gender identity. And it goes back to taking care of yourself and doing everything you can to not have to go to the hospital. So for almost all the years of my HIV diagnosis, my interaction with medical has just been going to my HIV doctor, which was great. The center I went to was very comprehensive, very knowledgeable, and I happened to get a really great doctor. The team was great, and so everyone. It's something, I guess, when you're HIV positive, something that people might not know. For the vast part, everyone goes to the same place. Now, if you have some good insurance, you might, go somewhere else so you can be discreet. That is an option. But for the vast part, if you're on service, entitlements, services, you're going to the same place. You're living in the same place. So it's kind of like a community. And so I felt safe. Now, I have heard of horror stories. Of people when they were diagnosed, they were made, they was disrespected. When they went to the hospital for something else, they were carried because of their HIV status. But no, that hasn't happened to me. But it does happen, and it's still happening today. My sister recently called me about 2 months ago, at the beginning of this year, and we was having a conversation. And she said, we was talking because we plan to open up our own home healthcare agency. And she said, it touched her heart because a young man, 18 years old, was in a coma in the hospital out of state by himself in a coma. While he was in a coma, they did some blood work, found out he was HIV positive, and the nurses freaked out. And my sister said she felt like they was acting as if it was the 1980s. That was like how people in today, young nurses, our people, like, oh no, I wondering how he got it, and it's making really homophobic remarks around it. And and can you imagine, you're out of state and you find out you're HIV positive, and now you have a team and you can hear this happening outside your door. So that still does happen today. Why? I don't know why. I guess some people are just mean-spirited, even with all the education. But a lot of the education has been targeted as form of prevention instead of, how how do I say that? I think we still have some challenges in how we market prevention when it comes to HIV. I think it's very scripted, targeted, and the way that it's targeted is still very biased, racist, lackluster, is made to demonize. These people are less than. And so even with campaigns such as HIV Stops With Me, and we're spokesmodels and we're thriving and surviving with HIV, that's a very small representation of the bigger picture. There's still a lot of people that are gagging with HIV. There's still a lot of people that are taking HIV to the grave. They're not talking about it. People are petrified. People don't know what they're going to do. People don't have access in the South to medicine, to insurance to give them medicine. When you talk about insurance and Medicaid and Medicare, what about, there's a lot of states in the South that's not an option. So that's why you have a mass migration. And I'm one of those migrators that moved up north where there were insurances such as Medicaid and opportunities for you to get your medication. Because it's, like I said, there's still parts in America, still places in the world where medication is not an option and people are dying. And so we have a lot of work that we still have to do in HIV.
What would I say to somebody living with HIV? Keep being you. Keep loving. Keep aspiring. Keep striving. And ask your doctor about Biktarvy. Biktarvy is a complete one-pill, once-a-day treatment used for HIV in certain adults. It's not a cure, but with one small pill, Biktarvy fights HIV with 3 different medicines to help you get to undetectable. That means the amount of virus is so low it can't be measured in lab tests. So keep pushing, keep creating, and keep pouring your soul into everything you do.
Serious side effects can occur, including kidney problems and kidney failure. Rare life-threatening side effects include a buildup of lactic acid and liver problems. Do not take Biktarvy if you take tofetilide or rifampin. Tell your doctor about all the medicines and supplements you take if you are pregnant or breastfeeding, or if you have kidney or liver problems, including hepatitis. If you have hepatitis B, do not stop taking Biktarvy without talking to your doctor. Common side effects were diarrhea, nausea, and headache.
If you're HIV positive, keep loving who you are, inside and out. Ask your doctor if Biktarvy is right for you.
So if the commercials, the ads, all the programs are, and this is an interesting question you're asking now because of some recent happenings, shall we say, lately. If it is involving an HIV positive person and they're telling their life, this is real. It's as real as it gets, and it's accurate. What I will say is there are times that I remember seeing ads for an HIV medication, and at the time it was just treatment, not preventive treatment, all these folks are very physically fit. They're climbing mountains and they're like, yes, you can do this too. And I feel like I get the reasoning behind that because you don't always want to show the other side of it, which isn't always pretty. But the other side of a lot of people's lives aren't always pretty, HIV positive or not. But I feel like it was sometimes giving this false sense of security, like, it's all right, I could become HIV positive, now there's a pill for it, or then it were pills, medication, regimens, and I'll be fine. And especially now that we're at 1 pill once a day, I think that sometimes it doesn't tell the whole story. That's why I think, yes, if it's a positive person in these ads, that is who they are. They are bike riding. They are walking their dog. They are with their children. They're with their partners. I think that that's where it's crucially important that those of us who could tell our story and feel like we could do that as well in a public forum, do that on shows like yours, do that in ads, and be able to continue the conversation. That yes, while this doesn't mean you're going to die tomorrow, it also doesn't mean that it's an easy road to travel. There are a lot of bumps, and how I got here as only a little portion, a snippet of what went on in my life you're hearing, and you're probably like, oh my gosh, you know? So yes, there are other sides to it. It's not something that you want to get, and it's not something that, I get it, no one's consciously, most people are not consciously trying to get or become HIV positive, but you do need to look at the other side too. As you're looking at that side of, I can be okay, there's a lot that goes into that you shouldn't have to deal with if you can avoid it. And those are the sides that I think is crucial.
I feel like in a lot of ways, now that we are out of the height of the HIV/AIDS crisis, that things have sort of normalized, balanced out. HIV/AIDS is not over. The world has HIV, the world has AIDS, you know, and it is something that we need to continue to educate and combat. However, there is no there's no drama around, you know, I think the closest that you come to drama in real life in terms of HIV, at least in the States, especially in New York, where you have so many resources, is the actual diagnosis. You know, it's something that never gets easier. Like, it never gets easier to deliver an HIV positive test result. And the reactions, unfortunately, are still, because I think that even though I think the reaction, the diagnosis is still so tied to trauma and stigma, that when somebody receives that, you know, there's still very dramatic reactions. But I think once you get past that initial point, it's so routine. It's so, you know, it's the major revelations 40 years in are few. You get diagnosed, you get the treatment, you take your medication, you become undetectable, you live a long, healthy life. You know? And so there's no drama in that. Right? And so, you know, that, I'm not saying the stories aren't worth telling. I'm not saying the stories aren't inspiring. Yes, it's inspiring, but it's every day, you know? And so you have to dramatize it. And so, yeah, no, that's not accurate. You know? They're not, you know, they don't create TV shows to tell everyday stories. They create them for ratings, for fame, right? That's what those things are created for. It's not, you know, and then they may want to throw some like, oh, we're bringing attention, we're bringing awareness. Yeah, but, you know, telenovela, like Pose, I mean, I'm grateful. Like, I lived through some of that, right? And so it's reflective of a time, and it was overdue. It was long overdue. But at the same time, it was like they took it was inspired by actual events. A lot of those things, like, there were references, like there were things that happened in Pose that you were like, oh, that's Venus Extravaganza. Oh, that is Octavia Saint Laurent. Oh, that is Tracy Africa. You know, when you would look at the storyline and you would be like, oh, that's Dorian Corey, right? Oh, that's the mummy that was in her closet, right? And so they drew upon, you know, actual events that happened, but, you know, they made it into a telenovela. That shit was a soap opera, like, you know, it was a soap opera, and so because it's entertaining. So it's an entertainment value, like the creative license, right? Do we have like accurate stories? No, that's why if we were accurately represented in media, there would be no need for a HIV Stops With Me campaign. There would be no need for you to do this interview with me. There would be no need for me to sit here in this chair in front of this camera and tell you my story, because the networks would already be, the producers would already be doing that for us.
Oh, it's definitely inaccurate. It definitely needs to be more diverse in regards to not necessarily, I mean, not just with color, but as well as gender. Because there are some people, guys who are living on the DL, you know, who are going out, you know, having sex with men and taking what they contracted to that person who is HIV positive, and they're passing it on to their girlfriends and wives. Now, so definitely the advertisement needs to change to be inclusive of those scenarios as well. And sometimes it's just the fact that they've got HIV from someone who might not even been gay as far as they know, in any capacity. And so they need to definitely include that possibility, because until they include that possibility, it's still going to be labeled as a quote-unquote gay disease by right-wingers.
No, I do not. The advertisement is not targeted to do that. It's not targeted to break stigma. It's targeted, we live in a capitalistic society. It's targeted to make the pharmaceutical companies more money. When you see like the Cabenuva, or you see these commercials for other drugs that are put out to help cure what I feel like, our medical community has imposed upon us is, you need to take this pill, take this drug, take that drug. And they cause all these side effects. Where is the health really in it in that type of marketing? I think the marketing is more effective when it comes to campaigns, when you have allocated funds that's set to do a specific thing, such as the campaign that I'm on, which is HIV Stops Me. You have U equals U. I think those have been very beneficial in the target marketing, because you see the people that are using are a representation of the communities that they're targeting. So the conversation is being had. HIV, people know that HIV is here. Now, where I become disheartened is that prevention, but you're not talking about the social, economical advancement of those same communities. So we can be undetectable, but what about equality? What about equity? What about removing me from that environment? I still feel strongly that a lot of our communities, especially Black and Brown, LGBT communities, that we're placed at risk. And so I kind of want to go from risk to reason and understanding, okay, why are numbers so high here? Why are statistics so high here? Is there lack of opportunities that will afford people a better way of life that they might not become susceptible to HIV at 18 years old? Oh, well, they're 18 years old and we're getting all these people that are young now. That's nothing to celebrate about. We should be gagging. You know what I mean? I know for me, being diagnosed at 22, I was like, damn. I just started having sex. Damn. I haven't even begun to live yet. Like, it really hits you like a ton of bricks, and so many things go through your head. And if you happen to be in a good space, like as I was able to keep moving. But what about people that are not in a good space? Like, what are you going to do? So now you have a cycle of possible substance abuse, self-medication through substance abuse. Now you have a cycle of people not being able to manage their emotions, so now they might be violent. So now you might end up within the justice system via prison or jail. You have survival really goes into mode because you might isolate yourself because you feel like no one's going to love you, no one's going to care for you, so you turn to a life of crime that will once again lead you into jail or into an early grave. And so I don't see no prevention, I don't see no advertisement speaking to that. All I see is take this medication and your life is going to be better. When that's a whole lie. Take this medication and my life. I just think that we as humans, as society, and I want to relate this to death. People always say, oh, my grandma's 90 years old, I just want her to live to be 100. That's selfish. Why? What about quality of life? I'm about quality versus, no. If I'm 40 years old, I want to be 40 years old and healthy, maximal healthy. Not 50 years old, decrepit, not being able to do what I gotta do just for the sake of taking a pill or for the sake of, having these pharmaceutical companies shove things down your throat. And so I said all of this to say, the prevention is just not the only answer. It's a good start, and we've had a lot of work, a lot of advancements around it, but let's come back to the individual, to the person, and let's change people's circumstances on why they are HIV positive. And I still feel like our circumstances are still the same. I'm HIV positive, but I'm still in the ghetto. I'm HIV positive, but I'm still in this small town, going to the same club. You know what I mean? Nothing has changed for me. And that just goes for communities, and it's not individual, but nothing has changed for those communities that are being targeted by the campaigns and the advertisements.
Step up, prep up.
Step up, prep up.
To help keep you free from the risk of HIV.
From the makers of Truvada, a new PrEP option. Descovy for PrEP, a once-daily prescription medicine that helps lower the chances of getting HIV through sex. It's not for everyone. Descovy for PrEP has not been studied in people assigned female at birth. Talk to your doctor to find out if it's right for you.
Step up for health and body.
Prep up for your one and only love, or many loves. For kings, this queen, and you royals in between. For my now.
Our now.
And my future. Our future.
Step up, prep up. Descovy is the newest way to prep. Descovy does not prevent other sexually transmitted infections, so it's important to use safer sex practices and get tested regularly. You must be HIV negative to take Descovy for PrEP, so you need to get tested for HIV immediately before and at least every 3 months while taking it. If you think you were exposed to HIV or have flu-like symptoms, tell your doctor right away. They may check to confirm you are still HIV negative. Serious side effects can occur, including kidney problems and kidney failure. Rare life-threatening side effects include a buildup of lactic acid and liver problems. The most common side effect was diarrhea. Tell your doctor about all the medicines and supplements you take, or if you have kidney or liver problems, including hepatitis. If you have hepatitis B, do not stop taking Descovy without talking to your doctor. Ask your doctor about your risk of HIV, and if Descovy for PrEP is right for you.
Words are loud, but actions are louder.
Step up,
Prep up.
With Descovy for PrEP.
Get help paying for Descovy for PrEP. Learn more at stepupprepup.com.
So PrEP stands for pre-exposure prophylaxis, which is a very long way of saying HIV prevention through medication. Back in, I want to say 1999, 2000, this was before all the wonderful drugs came along. So they were pharmaceutical manufacturers, labs, research facilities. They were trialing different types of immune boosters, things that would eradicate HIV duplicating itself. And they did a trial, several trials, some in the US, some in Africa, some in South America, and they were finding that these controlled studies that men who had sex with men were having less exposure to HIV by taking the antiretrovirals daily. So it was through all this hard work and determination to find a cure that we found a great prevention. And just so everyone knows, this isn't just like, oh, we found this thing that works, we're going to push it out. It takes years and years of studies. It has to be trialed. It's not just like you can go out and get it tomorrow. So it was finally approved by the FDA in 2012. And New York State, because we have New York City, the population of New York City is gigantic. The amount of people becoming HIV positive in New York City was impacting the rest of the state. So New York State was the first one to jump on and say, yes, we want to decrease new infections. We want to be able to say no new infections for X amount of time. However, the way they marketed it when it came out was, gay men are going to get HIV, you have to take this medication. Oh, you're a sex worker, you're dirty and gross, take this medication. Oh, you shoot up, you're probably going to get HIV, you should take this medication. So it wasn't really well thought out because they were like using words like at risk or promiscuous or prostitution. And it was just completely dehumanizing to people. Because, again, I will reiterate this. I'm going to shout this even from my deathbed. HIV does not discriminate who you are. Anybody can get it. So I think the campaigns really started to get better and more focused probably about 2015. 2016, somewhere in there. And then Gilead is the drug manufacturer that has the 2 oral medications out right now. And they are able to do huge national campaigns. And they have all this money to give to qualified health centers and STI clinics. So they were really able to push that message of there's a pill that can prevent you from becoming HIV positive. And that's all this comes down to, is there's a preventative for HIV. And it doesn't matter who you have sex with, and for whatever reason, you can be protected against HIV. So Truvada was the first one that came out. It has since gone generic, and that can be prescribed to anybody of any gender or representation or how they present themselves to the world. Descovy is really for men who have sex with men and trans women. I don't know why they never tested it on heterosexual men or cisgendered women who have sex with men, unfortunately. So Truvada all on its own was effective at 96%. Condoms are at 99%, Truvada was at 96%. And then if you throw lube in the mix, then you're protected at 98%. And some people like to use condoms still and take PrEP. So now you're protected at like 99.1%. And then Descovy came out, and off the bat, all on its own, Descovy is protecting people from HIV at 99.3%. Can't ever say anything's 100% guaranteed, but Descovy works really well. It's a smaller pill. Not to say that anything's wrong with Truvada, but, we have choice, and that's the beauty of it. The injectable, there are some caveats there. They really do recommend the injectable for people who have for men who have sex with men and trans women. Again, those are the two highest groups affected from HIV. So, but we saw, so you're completely neglecting black women, which is criminal in my mind, but that's a whole other story.